The Bills turned the game around on Sunday, erasing a 21-point deficit. How did they pull it off? I'm going to break that down today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Well, folks, welcome in. I took the time to study the ALL-22 coaches film from the Bills' win over the Patriots, and I'm sharing with you my top takeaways today. We'll do studs and duds. We'll recap my keys. We'll talk defense. But let's start with his offense that put together 5 consecutive touchdown drives as part of this come-from-behind win over the New England Patriots. And so it wasn't a huge game for the Bills' passing offense in terms of volume stats. Josh Allen goes 19 of 28, 193 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. In fact, 0 turnover-worthy throws from Josh Allen in this game. We'll talk about that in just a moment. A very efficient game for Josh Allen. Certainly opened things up at times. Play action was a big part of this game plan. 43% play action rate for Josh Allen on his dropbacks. Now, he wasn't super productive with play action. In fact, it was one of the most unique play action stat lines I've seen from Josh Allen. He's 5 of 11 for 34 yards and a touchdown with play action. Without, he was 14 of 17 for 159 yards and 2 touchdowns. And so a game where Josh Allen found a lot more rhythm without play action as compared to with play action. I have a thought on that I'll share in just a moment. I do want to single out some of the opportunities down the field. Josh Allen threw the ball deep, which is 20 yards or more from the line of scrimmage, 6 times, completed 3 of those for 75 yards and a touchdown. All 3 of the misses were to Brandon Cooks. And I will say that I do believe they're getting close. They're getting close to having some chances down the field with Josh Allen and Brandon Cooks. Of course, the first play of the game, it was a good route. It was a good throw from Josh. Brandon Cooks just couldn't finish the play. Josh Allen had him on a vertical shot later on down the right sideline where Cooks had vertical leverage. Josh left the ball out of bounds. It wasn't catchable for Brandon Cooks. And then there was another very good chance down the left side. It was a play action play. And unfortunately, there was a little bit of pressure from Josh Allen's left, and he couldn't really get set. And the ball comes out late and high, and it winds up being incomplete. But the good part of that is there were 3 very good chances to work the ball to Brandon Cooks down the field. And so as we are hopeful for the Bills to establish something there and, certainly stretch the field a little bit with this passing game, I think that they're close on some things, which gives me some optimism moving forward. The Bills allowed a little bit of pressure in this game, a 42% pressure rate for the New England Patriots, which is really good. Part of that, though, I would say is Josh Allen was very measured in this game, and he held onto the ball for quite some time. In fact, his average time to throw in this game was 3.08 seconds. That's 25th among Week 15 starting quarterbacks, and it's significantly higher than where he's been this season. He's actually a tick under 2.7 seconds on his average time to throw. He's up over 3 in this game. And then the other metric that really stands out is that only 7.1% of Josh Allen's throws were into tight windows. And that's a pretty low mark, much lower than his season mark and very low in terms of the quarterbacks in Week 15. And I do think that Josh was really measured in this game. And when you go back to that first matchup against New England and you're reminded of some of the mistakes that the offense made, Josh Allen wasn't willing to put the ball into harm's way, which is generally a very, very good thing. But there were times in this game where I felt like Josh took throws that were obviously more efficient in lieu of chances that he had maybe to make a more aggressive throw down the field. And this has happened several times for Josh Allen this year. And I think that when in doubt, he puts the ball in a spot where it's less likely for there to be an issue. And I think that's helpful, right? It's disappointing at times because you want the bigger prize, right? And Josh usually has eyes for the bigger thing. And he was a lot more measured in this game, despite, obviously a lot of production, 5 consecutive touchdown drives where he made some big time throws. But there was a measured approach from Josh where he really wanted weapons to declare themselves as open before he really wanted to rip the football. The Patriots did play a lot of cover 1, a lot of cover 3 in this game. 70% of the Patriots coverage shells were one high middle of the field closed. And that makes sense for them. Their strength of their defense is their outside corners, Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez. And certainly the weakness of the Bills offense is what they don't have at wide receiver. And if you're New England, I'd want to funnel throws to the outside where my corners are as well. And they're daring the Bills to go over those matchups. And the Bills, I think, intelligently didn't go after those matchups. Occasionally, you were able to have that deep comeback to Josh Palmer, but for the most part, it wasn't really messing with those matchups. And so the way that the Bills were able to overcome that was, hey, not necessarily that we're going to throw isolated balls against their good corners on the perimeter, but what we are going to do is have outbreaking patterns. And the Patriots were very deliberate about kind of clogging up and congesting the middle of the field and forcing those throws outside. And again, as opposed to just throwing perimeter matchups, the Bills opted for routes that broke towards the sideline, which was probably the right plan in terms of how to attack that Patriots defense based on what the Bills have and what they don't have. Now, if you do look at Josh Allen's spray chart in this game, you're going to notice that everything is out towards the sideline, but really everything is to the right. This wasn't a game where Josh Allen really challenged the left side. And I would say in studying Josh Allen through the years, his least accurate throws are outbreaking patterns to his left towards the sideline. And, his footwork gets different there. He kind of mirrors that Aaron Rodgers like hop step into those left throws. And so Josh, I think, played this game more towards his strengths and wasn't willing to put the ball in harm's way, which obviously was a winning formula for the Bills in this contest. I thought this was also a game, as we kind of talk a bit about the passing offense, but do start to transition into the rushing offense. I thought you saw the Bills break a lot of tendencies, and I think that's been a big trend over the last few weeks. And Joe Brady, the Bills offensive coordinator, a few weeks ago, he actually said that there are some tendencies that you want. And he didn't really go into specifically what they were, but when he said that, I perked up and I paid attention to that. And now I've started to see some of the things that were tendencies that actually got to the point where people were frustrated that have now become really good foundational elements of the offense that have led to counters off of them. And so I think about 3 big tendencies that everyone really did not enjoy. First down run rate, the mesh concepts in the passing game, and bubble screens to Khalil Shakir. And you continue to see those tendencies broken and the defense not really being ready for it because you're aware of the tendencies. You're ready to defend the tendency. You're not ready for the counter. Here comes the counter. And a good example of that is a third down conversion to Dawson Knox, where it looks like mesh and you feel like you have the 2 shallows, but it's actually a whip route from Dawson Knox. And so he runs the shallow, but breaks out to the sideline. Josh Allen hits him in stride on that outbreaking pattern towards the sideline, and you get a first down. I think about Ty Johnson's screen that went for a first down. Well, do you know what the first part of that progression was? Faking a bubble screen to Khalil Shakir to come back the other way to Ty Johnson. The Bills get a first down out of that play. I think about some of the opportunities in the passing game and play action, especially against Cincinnati. But in this game, the Bills ran play action on first down, showing that run threat, but it's not. It's a pass. And so you've seen how those frustrating tendencies have turned into really nice wrinkles at this point in the season. And I'm obviously curious to see how those things continue to evolve. All right, so that's my basic thoughts on the passing offense. I do want to get into the rushing offense here on the other side of it and get into snap counts and some final thoughts on this Bills come from behind win offensively. So folks, be sure to stick with me. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. And live betting is best when the game starts to shift, the receiver gets hot, the defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into that moment. They have live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as guys heat up, and you can bet on the next touchdown score, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. The Bills, if you were live betting Bills Patriots, you saw that there was a point in time where the Patriots became 6.5-point favorites. Imagine if you were able to jump into that and get the Bills on the money line. That'd be a heck of a payout. So check it out. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, folks, welcome back. I want to finish up my thoughts here on the offense, and we've kind of transitioned away from the passing offense. But one thing that I think is really important as we do make that transition with our conversation is that credit to Joe Brady for not abandoning the run in this game. Of course, the Bills go down by 21. And even in the early parts of the second half, they stayed committed to running the football. And obviously, Josh Allen's a special player, best player in the world, all those things. But this Bills offense is always going to be optimized when they're two-dimensional and James Cook is involved. And I thought that was really important to stabilize the comeback, not get antsy about time. And I thought that's a big correction from some of the mistakes that this team made earlier in the season in losses, especially against New England, especially against Atlanta, where the game was not out of reach, but the Bills were playing it like they were, down 2 scores with 3 minutes left in the game. And so I thought this was a much more mature effort by Joe Brady to stay committed to that run game and at least keep the Bills ahead of the sticks and not in 3rd and longs and 2nd and longs. And so I thought that was a really good job. Of course, the Bills run the ball 37 times, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4.5 yards per carry. And one thing that was unique about this rushing performance is that the Bills did not feast on explosive runs. This wasn't like 37 for 168, but they had, a couple of 50-yard runs. This was legitimate grinding out runs and even living with some dirty runs, but ultimately most of them keeping the offense on schedule and getting the Bills into manageable 3rd down situations. The intent of the run game was not necessarily gap heavy or zone heavy. They ran literally half runs that were gap runs, half of the runs were zone runs, and they had a 61.5% success rate on both. And so it wasn't a game where it skewed to either one or either one was more successful. They were successful with both, and they mixed in both. Offensive line, I thought run blocking, and really whenever you talk about run blocking with the Bills, it is the offensive line, but it's also the receivers, it's the tight ends, it's the fullback. They all have a big role to play here, and the Bills averaged 3.32 yards before contact per attempt, which was phenomenal. In fact, that was 5th best of any team in Week 15. So a lot of movement, a lot of displacement, and a lot of holes for James Cook and company to hit. I thought generally the Bills did a good job with their runs being quick hitting. I talked about this on the post-game reaction show, but I obviously was able to confirm everything and studying the tape. The Bills were intentional about getting north with runs. And obviously, James Cook is, I've said it before, I'll say it again, he's the best cutback runner in the league. He's the best spill runner in the league. This wasn't the game for that. Not with those corners, Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez. They're too big, they're too physical, they're too long, they're too good at tacklers. You got to get the ball and go. You can't allow them to slow play and squeeze and take away runs and turn runs into negatives, right? The Bills and James Cook did a very good job with the design and the execution to get north on these runs and not, kind of attack the edges with spills and cutbacks. So I thought that was an issue for the Bills running the ball in week 5 against New England. I think that was a really good correction this time around. All right, let's get into my keys. This is a new thing that we've been doing the last few weeks where when you listen to the primer episodes that I do, I will give you keys for the Bills on offense and defense. And I love to kind of revisit those and see how my perception of things aligned with what actually happened. So my keys for the Bills offense against the Patriots defense, number 1 is that the passing game had to go through tight ends and running backs. Well, it certainly did. 13 of Josh Allen's 19 completions went to running backs and tight ends. All 3 of his touchdown passes went to running backs and tight ends. This was not a game where you're going to go after those corners. You want to attack them where they're most vulnerable. Me, Josh Allen, Joe Brady, we were aligned on that. Number 2 is that the Bills Josh Allen's legs needed to be a factor. And of course, he has 11 rushes for 48 yards, was not shy about taking off and weaponizing his legs. And usually in these high leverage games, the Bills do well with that. And then lastly, I thought the Bills needed to really lean into their zone rushing offense. I don't think that was necessarily something that happened. The Bills did use their zone rushing offense, but not any more than they did their gap rushing offense. The Bills this week were 7th best in zone rush success rate, 6th most yards per carry on zone runs, but I don't think it was the emphasis, and I think the Bills actually had a better idea with some of those quick-hitting gap runs. And so I don't know that I was necessarily on the right track with that. Offensive snap counts, the Bills played 70 snaps of offense. Josh Allen, 70, right? All 70 snaps. At running back, James Cook, 47 of 70 snaps. Ty Johnson, 18. Ray Davis, 6. And Reggie Gilliam, 8. At tight end, Dawson Knox, 45 of 70 snaps. Obviously a great game. Good impact as a blocker and then 2 receiving touchdowns. Jackson Hawes, 31 snaps, and Dalton Kincaid, 25. I think the Bills are being very calculated with Dalton Kincaid. Obviously still kind of coming back from the knee hamstring type deal. And, he's not a player that is ideally going to be blocking a ton. And so I think you're going to have to just get used to Dalton Kincaid not necessarily being a high volume of snaps guy. He's a big slot. He's a weapon in the passing game, but you're not going to really want him featured as a blocker over Hawes or Knox. So I think that's just going to be kind of the deal there. At wide receiver, Khalil Shakir, 48 of 70 snaps. Keon Coleman, 39. Tyrell Shavers, 35. Brandon Cooks, 24. Josh Palmer, 23. Josh Palmer, obviously 2 big mistakes between the false start that put the Bills from a 3rd and 3 to a 3rd and 8. And then Josh Allen got sacked on 3rd and 8. Then, of course, couldn't make the block there on that screen to Ty Johnson at the end. But obviously, the route running just stands out. I mean, the skill set's really good for Josh Palmer. I think he's just got to be healthy and stay in this lineup and evolve with this offense because I think he can really help. He's clearly the best route runner this team has. The comeback route that he had, the deep comeback was phenomenal. And hopefully he can stay healthy and find his groove. And then offensive line-wise, all starters played all 70 snaps. So that's the snapshot of the Bills when it comes to the offense. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk passing defense, rushing defense. We'll get into my defensive snap counts and, of course, studs and duds. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. You ever feel like your money just disappears each month? It happens fast. A few subscriptions here, an impulse buy there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't match the numbers in your head. Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances. Because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. I love being able to see all your spending on one dashboard. It makes it easier to understand exactly where your money's going. And I love that Rocket Money will automatically build a budget for you based on your past spending. It's going to keep you on track without overthinking it. And the bill alerts and spending notifications help you catch small things before they turn into big expenses. So take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Welcome back, folks. We're going to shift our attention to the defense. Bobby Babich had some words for the defensive performance. He said it was disgusting. Well, I agree, Bobby. In the first half it was, but there's a lot to be proud of in the second half. Let's talk about it. Drake May passing the football goes 14 of 23, 155 yards and a pick. And in the second half, he struggled. 5 of 12, 42 yards with an interception, sacked 3 times. It's a good thing he had that block down the field that J.J. Watt lost his mind over on the broadcast, because that was all he did. That's all he did in the second half. And I thought the Bills did a good job once again in the second half. They played more man coverage. They blitzed more, and they just kept them guessing. That's really what it came down to. There was never a point in the second half of this game where Drake May was comfortable. They varied their looks, and whether it was sending pressure, rushing 3, sending 5, but really just kind of caging him in, he was uncomfortable. You saw a lot of inaccurate throws from the pocket without really any pressure. Just a matter of, I don't think that he was trusting what he was seeing. I don't think the picture was clear to him. And in a high leverage, high pressure moment, really the first time in his career, he wasn't able to get it done. And so I thought the Bills did a good job of really mixing it up and keeping him guessing and never allowing him to get comfortable in the second half. I thought the Bills were able to get a little bit more pressure in this game. Their pressure rate was 41%. That's way up, 26% the previous 4 games. So welcome back, Joey Bosa. There was a lot better pressure on the quarterback in this game. Of course, Drake May will hold onto the ball a bit more than the previous quarterbacks the Bills have faced. But I thought the best thing about the pass rush is that it was mostly disciplined and designed to keep him in the pocket. The Bills got on one scramble earlier in the game where they sent Max Harrison on a blitz from the backside, and they dropped Greg Rousseau into coverage, and then Deion Walker was responsible for becoming the contain player. And the tackle, literally just wiped Deion Walker down the line of scrimmage. He took out Joey Bosa, took out Matt Milano, and you did all that while simultaneously creating an escape outlet for Drake May, who scrambled. Shaq Thompson misses a tackle, and you got a big scramble. Outside of that play, I thought the Bills did a very good job of keeping him in the pocket and really forcing him to make those throws from the pocket. And I think he showed us pretty clearly that he's going to be high variance with that in a high leverage moment in the second half of that game. The Bills played a lot of cover 2, a lot of cover 6. Cover 6 means quarter, half. So you basically play cover 2 to one side, cover 4 to the other. Really just the opposite idea coverage-wise of what New England played against the Bills, where the Bills are showing a lot of split safety stuff, a lot of middle of the field open coverage concepts, and they just did a really good job of varying them and disguising them and making that picture different for Drake May over and over again, and he was never able to find any rhythm. I thought the coverage for the most part was really, really strong in this game. A couple of instances where it got away from him. Cole Bishop had a busted assignment on that third. It was not. I don't know if it was third down. Yeah, it was a third down play right before the half, and New England was kind of like in between whether they were going to try to score or not. And there was like an 18-yard completion to Hunter Henry, and it was a busted assignment by Cole Bishop. He drove on Diggs. I thought maybe he thought that Drake May was going to throw at the sticks, and he vacates his spot. Hunter Henry just sits down and nobody's around him. That's a busted assignment by Cole Bishop, who struggled in this game pretty significantly between that play and then his run fills were really poor and a huge contributing factor to why Travion Henderson got the 2 long touchdown runs. So not a great game for our guy Cole Bishop, who's had a very good season, but there's certainly some rough moments in this one that really cost the Bills. Speaking of costing the Bills, the run defense was terrible. New England runs the ball 25 times for 246 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. They get 13 rushing first downs. Check this out, 6.96 yards before contact. Boy, literally the front just got worked. I would say everybody but Daquan Jones had their lowlights. I don't think you can point to any one player and say they were consistently terrible, but everybody consistently had a bad moment. And when you're a single gap defense and you're going up against an offense that is going to have pullers and introduce extra gaps, you're going to get creased. And that happened frequently for the Bills. And certainly missed tackles were a major problem. 7 missed tackles against the run. Shaq Thompson with 4 of those to him. It was not good. And what I think really helped the Bills' run defense is Josh McDaniels deciding to only call 3 runs in the second half. Boy, if I'm a Patriots fan, I am hot about that. 3 runs in the second half. One of them was the, 65-yard run for Travion Henderson. They only ran the ball 2 other times in a game that they lost by 4, where there was a lead change. They were leading going into the second half. That's hard to reconcile for New England, but I thank you very much, Josh McDaniels. Keep that up, dude. I think that was the biggest help to the Bills' run defense is that Josh McDaniels stopped running the ball inexplicably. Shout out. Thank you. Appreciate that. But I thought the Bills' run defense had really improved over the last 2.5 games, really the second half against Houston and the next 2 games. And this one, they got for sure. A lot of issues with getting displaced, out of fits, missed tackles, and kind of the warts that you've seen characteristic of when the Bills are struggling to defend the run. They showed up in this game. All right, let's recap my keys for the Bills defense. Number 1, I said that the Bills had to have the right plan for Stephon Diggs. Early in the game, they were pretty intentional about how they played Stephon Diggs on third downs. You saw some reps, a couple of third down reps early where Taron Johnson and Cole Bishop bracketed Stephon Diggs. But ultimately, Stephon Diggs had 3 catches for 26 yards in this game. He was pretty much a non-factor. And so they had the right plan. I think that's very true. Number 2, as I said, the Bills needed to win third downs on defense. It's been an issue for the Bills with their third down defense. And Drake May's obviously been very good, except for this game on third downs. And while it started really rocky in the second half, the Bills defense held them to 1 of 6 on possession down. So 1 for 5 on third downs, 0 for 1 on fourth downs in the second half. The Bills did have the answers in the second half when it mattered most. And then I said that the Bills needed to win in the red zone with their defense, knowing that the Patriots would come in very mindful of their red zone woes, coming off the bye, and probably with some new wrinkles. And they had some new wrinkles. They weaponized Drake May's legs in the red zone, and the Bills weren't ready for that in ways that they should have been. One was a zone read, one was a quarterback draw, and those were touchdowns for Drake May. And so the Bills didn't necessarily win in the red zone, but fortunately they only made 3 trips, and at least they were able to shut them down once. So those were my keys. Defensive snap counts, the Bills played 52 snaps of defense. At defensive end, Greg Rousseau, 40. One thing I'll say about Greg Rousseau is I want to see him rush out of a 3-point stance way more. When he's in that 2-point, he plays tall, his footwork, he's got a false step, and he's just not as explosive off the ball. When he's in the 3-point, he gets off the ball clean. He doesn't have the false step, and he plays with better leverage through his rush. I hope that we see that more. Joey Bosa, 39 snaps, A.J. Epinesa, 23, T.J. Sanders, 14. Then Javon Solomon and Andre Jones, 2 defensive ends that the Bills dressed for this game. Neither one played a single snap of defense. At defensive tackle, Daquan Jones, 35 snaps. He's a good player. I think we just forget that he's there. He's good, and he really stands out among a really overall underwhelming group of defensive tackles. Larry Ogunjobi, 25 snaps. Had some good moments against the run, actually. I wish he would have got Drake May down on the one scramble, but maybe one of Larry Ogunjobi's better games as a Bill. That's a low bar to clear. But I thought he was more helpful than he usually is. Deion Walker, only 20 snaps. Had a great play where he chased down a play to the perimeter, but just washed on double teams, way too tall as a pass rusher. Cost the Bills a big scramble by not being in his lane. I think the high variance play of Deion Walker continues. I mean, there's an occasional splash play, but the snap-to-snap consistency is nowhere where I think a lot of people think it is. It's very much a work in progress. And then Jordan Phillips played 9 snaps and then, of course, got hurt. At linebacker, Shaq Thompson played 51 snaps. He struggled. This was disappointing. I was so excited about Shaq Thompson over the last few games. In this game, he was a dud for sure. Missed tackles galore, missed coverage assignments. He did not play well. Matt Milano did play well. 45 snaps, of course, 2 sacks. Really, I think he had 6 run stops. He was outstanding. Dorian Williams, 19 snaps. I love when he's on the field. I think he helps his defense in that third linebacker role. And then Joe Andreessen played 1 snap. At corner, Trey White and Max Hairston, 52 snaps each. I thought Trey White was terrific in this game. Hairston had his ups and downs, a lot of good coachable opportunities. I think it's all good for Hairston. Everything that I see on tape that is an issue is all teachable, and it's all stuff that I just think he has to be exposed to and then learn from. And I think he's had some really good learning reps. I think Max Harrison is going to be really good, and I'm glad that he's able to kind of fail forward through some stuff. And then Taron Johnson, 51 snaps. I thought Taron played pretty well in this game. Cole Bishop, 52 snaps, all of them. Jordan Poyer, 40 snaps. Jordan Hancock, only 2. He's been really high variance. I understand the idea of kind of limiting him in a game like this. And then Cam Lewis played 12 snaps. So I think you saw a lot of what was traditionally for Jordan Hancock went to Cam Lewis in this game. And I think that was a good shift based on the magnitude of the game. But like I said, Cole Bishop, he struggled. Both of those long touchdown runs, horrible angles by Cole Bishop. And then, of course, the coverage bust that led to a big third down conversion. Studs and duds. These are my studs. Josh Allen, James Cook, Dawson Knox, Khalil Shakir, 5 catches, 5 targets, 62 yards, about the only receiver that did anything with consistency. Spencer Brown, welcome back. Boy, the run game with him in the lineup is just outstanding. How he works doubles with Osiris Torrance, how he gets to the second level, how he widens lanes. He matters a ton. Thought Deion Dawkins played a clean game. He's a stud. Trey White, outstanding. Matt Milano, outstanding. Ray Davis in the kick return game was fun to watch those wrinkles. The Bills had a couple of returns where Reggie Gilliam was the fullback. Then Ray Davis was the only returner back there. And they would kind of run like a trap play where they would, the last 2 on the end, they didn't block. And then Cam Lewis would come from the middle and kick out. And then Reggie Gilliam was the lead blocker. And then you wash everything down and you had these creases. They did that twice. Then they did a middle return where Alec Anderson became the Ray Davis player. And they ran right up the middle and had some big returns with some similar concepts. So I think Chris Tabor's in his bag right now, scheming up some returns for Ray Davis. And they're executing both blocking and then, of course, Ray Davis with the ball. And then Mitch Wishnowsky is a stud. I thought all of his punts were phenomenal and helped the Bills win field position, which is something they have not been consistent at winning this year. Duds in this game, Cole Bishop and Shaq Thompson. And there you have it. The ALL-22 review for the Bills win over the Patriots. All right, we're going to shift our attention the rest of the week to the Cleveland Browns. The Bills have the opportunity to get their 11th win of the season. We'll have herd mentality for you tomorrow, and then we'll start getting ready for the Browns with our crossover discussion, the primer, all the things that we do here on Locked On Bills. So don't miss anything. Make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.